Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. So far it's been a pretty rainy Saturday morning, May the 17th, but we have a full day of Mecklenburg Declaration celebrations. I'm starting out the morning at Hopewell Presbyterian Church. If you've been on the channel for a while, you know we've got some signers who are buried there, and they are doing a parade and some festivities. So I'm super excited to get this weekend kicked off. The anniversary of the signing of the Mecklenburg Declaration happens next week on Tuesday, so today is going to be one of the most exciting days for celebrating, and I cannot wait to get started and take you along with me. Let's go.
We ended up having to go through China Grove, and I got...
Yay, they're coming!
We serve NC-045! Vikings! One team! One unit! One family! Hurrah!
You found your hay wagon. It's a sign of something. Good catch.
Can anybody hear me? Yes. Does anybody not hear me? That's a foolish question, isn't it? Anybody that can't hear me, raise your hand. I'm giving people a little bit of time to reorganize here. Captain Somerville, can you get the band to come to play? Sure, you're you. Well, you're it, huh? Oh, good. I guess we have a band. All right, let me welcome you to this wonderful ceremony today and the fun we're going to have all day. My name is Sarah Sue Hardinger. I'm the president of the Mecklenburg Historical Association. We're one of the key sponsors of this event today and a co-sponsor, more or less, of one going on in Mint Hill at the same time. You're here to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence. Who knows what that is? Don't feel bad if you didn't raise your hand. There's a lot of people that don't know what that is, and that's part of the reason we're here today, is to make sure people will understand more about what that is and why it's something that should be celebrated from end to end of this country, not just in Mecklenburg County. Whether you were born here, whether your parents were born here, whether you've had family here for 300 years, which some people in this church have, whether you just showed up last week, whether you're just here to visit, if you're like me and you're a newcomer and only been here for 35 years, whoever you are, today you're a Mecklenburger. And today you get to take pride in what Mecklenburg County and its residents did 250 years ago. We started the formation of this nation as an independent nation, and so I think it is appropriate that we start today with our national anthem. So if you would please rise if you can, salute the colors to my left, and if you want to sing along, please do.
Color guard, halt, left, face. Right, face. Forward, march.
Big thank you to the North Mecklenburg High School ROTC, Air Force ROTC, and their band trumpeter. We have a lot of people to thank about this, and a lot of people were our helpers and sponsors. But the three big sponsors I do want to mention, ourselves again, we'll pat our own back, the Mecklenburg Historical Society. The Dunhill Hotel, if you're familiar with them downtown, helped us out financially quite a lot. And Midas Springs has provided a great deal of water for you all to keep cool. So good for them. The Midas Springs water is in some coolers that direction, I believe. Also, the church is providing cool space for us. If it should get a little warm for you as the day goes on, you can go downstairs in what's called the Family Life Center. That's that long modern building over there. And that will give you a cool space, and it will also give you the restrooms. Kind of important to know where those are. You can either go from the top and go down some stairs, or you can slowly walk around the building and you'll be on the same level. Depends on how your knees work. I walk around. We have many, many people here with us today that we wanted to take note of, but before we start about the ones that are standing up with us, I'd like to note the ones that are no longer standing up with us. We have here in our cemetery some of the signers of this Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence. As a matter of fact, we have as many as any other church does. We have John McNitt Alexander. You familiar with that name? Pretty much the biggest landowner around here, 10 square miles of land. Richard Berry, whose house we started the parade at today. Anybody see the parade? Anybody in the parade? Good. We started at Richard Berry's house, which is just up Beatties Ford Road, about a mile. We also have John Davidson, who is buried not here, but just down the road from us in his own cemetery. He's the next one up Beatties Ford Road. After that, we have Matthew McClure, who is on this side again. He's buried here in our cemetery. And we have William Graham, who's up, well, most of his land's in the lake, to be truthful. We also think that we have Ephraim Brevard here. I'll tell you his story if you come back and you listen to me after lunch. But we think he's buried here because he died at John McNitt's house, and it would only make sense since he's an elder here at Hopewell, as was Hezekiah Alexander. So we have a lot of people here who were part of the signing group. I do not know for sure, this is a bit of a rumor, but I believe that we were mentioned in the Congressional Record this week. So yay, Mr. Tillis, for that. And I believe we have someone who's going to give us greetings from Alma Adams. Someone have Alma Adams' letter? There she is. What is your name, please? Shantae Roberts is going to come and read us from reading from Alma Adams.
Happy anniversary, Mecklenburg. I am Shantae Roberts, a member of Hopewell AME Zion Church, which came out of Hopewell Presbyterian. I bring you greetings from the Honorable Alma Adams in her absence. Dear constituents, historians, and friends of Mecklenburg County, I extend my heartfelt congratulations to the people of Mecklenburg County and the great state of North Carolina as you commemorate the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence. Though I am unable to join you in person for this momentous occasion, please know that I celebrate with you in spirit and with deep appreciation for the legacy we honor today. On May 20th, 1775, before the Continental Congress adopted the Declaration of Independence, the brave citizens of Mecklenburg County declared their freedom from the British rule. Whether debated in legend or preserved in legacy, the Mecklenburg Declaration represents the bold spirit of independence that has always defined our community and our state. It embodies the courage to stand for liberty, the foresight to envision a new nation, and the resolve to take principled actions. As your Congresswoman, I am proud to represent a district rooted in such a powerful history, leadership, and self-determination. The principles laid out in the Mecklenburg Declaration echo still in our ongoing fight for justice, equity, and democracy for all people. May today's celebration not only honor the past, but also inspire a renewed commitment to the ideals of freedom, civic engagement, and community leadership that continue to shape our future. Congratulations again on the historic anniversary. With warm regards, Alma Adams.
Thank you, and on behalf of Hopewell Church, which I do not usually speak for, I'm so awful glad you guys are here. Mayor Knox, would you like to come forward? Mayor Rusty Knox of Davidson.
Good morning. It is truly an honor to be here. My family traces its roots to Mecklenburg County from 1757. My fourth great-grandfather died at the Battle of Ramsworth Mill, Captain Patrick Knox, and he is buried in a communal grave in Lincolnton. His niece, Jane Knox, married James Latta, and they were both buried at this cemetery. So I have deep roots here, and it is an honor to be here and read this proclamation. This is a proclamation for the 250th anniversary of the Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence. Whereas on May 19th, 1775, Charlottetown's founder, Colonel Thomas Polk, called for a convention of the Mecklenburg County militia leaders to be held in Charlotte. Those 26 men, upon hearing of the battles of Lexington and Concord, unanimously adopted resolutions to declare themselves a free and independent people in a document that became known as the Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence. And on May 20th, 1775, Colonel Polk read the Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence to the assembled citizens at the county courthouse. Whereas on May 31st, 1775, members of the Mecklenburg Committee of Safety adopted 20 additional resolutions, which came to be known as the Mecklenburg Resolves. Whereas a local tavern owner named Captain James Jack was called upon to deliver the Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence and Mecklenburg Resolves to North Carolina's delegates at the Second Continental Congress in Philadelphia. Whereas Captain Jack delivered the MEC deck, telling the delegates, "Gentlemen, you may debate here about reconciliation and memorialize your king, but bear in mind, Mecklenburg owes no allegiance to and is separated from the crown of Great Britain forever." Whereas the state of North Carolina has chosen to recognize the significance of Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence by placing the date of its signing, May 20th, 1775, upon our state flag and Great Seal. Whereas Dave Fleming, a resident of the town of Davidson and an accomplished author, has contributed meaningful preservation and understanding of the legacy through his acclaimed book, Who's Your Founding Father?, which explores the truth, controversy, and significance surrounding the MEC deck with wit, insight, and historical rigor. Whereas Mr. Fleming's work has helped bring regional history to national attention and continues to inspire pride in our shared heritage. Whereas May 20th, 2025 is the 250th anniversary of MEC deck. Now therefore be it resolved, I, Rusty Knox, Mayor of the town of Davidson, North Carolina, do hereby proclaim May 20th, 2025 as Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence Day in the town of Davidson and commend its observance to all citizens. Proclaim this 13th day of May, 2025.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Let me put in a plug for the fact that the Davidson Historical Society is reconvening. So if you're a member of Davidson or anywhere near it, you can start to be part of the Davidson Historical Society. Okay, Mayor Knox, our own Huntersville Mayor, Mayor Clark, our very own Huntersville Mayor. It's her turn because she's last and we're here. So if you would please come up. I think I have yours, okay?
Good afternoon or good morning, everybody. I'm going to move the mic because I'm short. I am the mayor of Huntersville. I'm not going to read our proclamation, which we also did on May 13th, because it is exactly the same as the one that Davidson and Cornelius did, and I will spare you hearing it 2 times in a row. But I do want to express this great joy, how excited I am to be here with you, and how happy that I'm here with you all for this 250th celebration in our beloved town of Huntersville. Today we got gathered not only to honor this pivotal moment in history, but to honor the unity and community that happened in this area that pushed our country forward into freedom. As we reflect on the courage and the vision of our ancestors, some who are buried here, who dared to dream of a brighter future, let us also dream of a brighter future, one of hope for the future. This celebration is a testament to our shared vision and shared thoughts for our community and the importance of coming together. So thank you all for being here for this momentous occasion. It's so excited to celebrate with you, and let's get the party started.
I think she thinks that's exactly what I want to do. You've heard 2 or 3 times about all the wonderful Scots-Irish people who are here, and were there that long ago and still are here. So I think we should have a little music along those lines, don't you think? Pipers, you're on.
Pipes ready? Pipes up. Amazing Grace once through, solo, constant band, talking brave, and one possible captain of all.
me a song about the Declaration and the American Revolution. I'm here on behalf of South Academy of International Languages and off of Nation Fork Road. Take a trip with me to 75 and 17 to the state of North Carolina and Mecklenburg County. Take you to the place where they signed the Declaration. Your pride and creation of our nation. I'll take you in the door and up a high stair. Talking here is heard everywhere. Let you shake hands with the people you see. See who caused us all to be free. You'll ask about battle and Captain Jack too. They'll say he's delivering your freedom to you. Write the Declaration to the city of York and bring that everything out here to work. There's talking and signing and songs in the air. And the spirit of freedom is there everywhere. Before you know it, you're part of the crew. And we must do all that we can do. If you go back now just 1 week prior, everybody is there laughing around the fire. Underneath the warm spring moon, see what your pride in your country has done.
Thank you,
That was
Jay.
awesome.
Jay, what's your last name? Brody. Pay attention to that name. It may be back to you. How many of these Scots were Presbyterians? So much of what happened around this county was based in the Presbyterian churches that existed here before the Revolution. There were 7, 8 if you want to count Clear Creek, churches here before the Revolution, and 1 Lutheran. And that's where the militia gathered. That's where the people met to talk. That's where they spent Sunday afternoon talking a little treason. And believe me, their ministers were right in there with them, especially a man named Alexander Craighead. And so today we're going to hear from our pastor here at Hopewell Church, Alexander, I can't say your name today, Alistair Escatel, who's going to speak to you about his views about what's going on right now. So I'll turn this over to Alistair.
Good morning. To the Mecklenburg Historical Association, to the respective dignitaries, and to each and to all who are attending today. It is a great pleasure and privilege as one of the pastors here to extend a most warm welcome to Hopewell Presbyterian Church. Established in 1762, it is a place where generation after generation have come together to meet for worship, to support one another, and to reach out into the community in service. Our link to those who have gone before us those who, in ways both small and large, have handed on to us the life that we know it as we know it today. Some of them family, some of them friends. Our link to them is perhaps felt in no more stronger way than within the embrace of the cemetery that surrounds us. A place that also adds further significance to today's occasion, as you've heard, by virtue of it being the resting place of several of the signers of the so-named Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence. Today's gathering invites us to consider the resilience and courage of ordinary people who chose to boldly stand for their beliefs. Their actions remind us that even the smallest acts of courage can ripple outward, creating a tide of change that resonates through time, shaping the lives of countless others. In a world that is often defined by challenges and uncertainties, perhaps we can draw inspiration from the story of a boy who, in what might have seemed like an insignificant gesture, offered 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish to Jesus. At first glance, his contribution appeared meager in the face of a vast crowd of thousands. Yet, in the hands of the Savior, that humble offering became a
Thanks for
feast
saving those chairs for us.
for many. This narrative serves as a profound reminder that no act of generosity or kindness is too small, and that when we place our gifts, when we place ourselves in the service of greater purpose, we unleash the potential to create the seemingly unlikely. Our history serves as both a guidepost and a mirror, reminding us of the struggles that have brought us to this moment and illustrating the transformative power of courageous actions taken by individuals in the face of adversity. The legacy of those early patriots implores us to examine the possibilities that lie within our reach, in our interaction with our neighbors, in our communities, and in our response to the things that break the heart of God around us. Even the smallest things offered can lead to change. It is easy to feel overwhelmed by the apparent enormity of the issues that are before us today. But remember that every great movement began with individuals who decided to act. Even a smile, a listening ear, a kind gesture speak hope where it was absent before. In learning from our history, we not only honor the brave souls who came before us, but also empower ourselves to forge a path forward together. We might hold to the wisdom of a man whose character was forged through the fire of another nation's history, former President of South Africa, Nelson Mandela, who said, and his life said it as well as his words, it always seems impossible until it is done. We must strive to be those individuals who dare to imagine a better world, utilizing our voices and our actions to uplift one another and to envisage a brighter future. The story of the Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence reminds us of the power in standing firm in our convictions and the importance of community in executing our vision. And so, as we gather together in this sacred space, let us carry forward the spirit of courage embodied by so many that lie and rest around us. May we evoke the strength drawn from our history as we endeavor to create a future that reflects the core values of faith, hope, and resilience. Let us ensure that our actions today echo through the corridors of time, serving as a beacon of inspiration for generations yet to come. In closing, yes, I'm closing, the preacher's kiss. I invite each of us to reflect on our own unique contributions. Consider the loaves and the fish that you have at your disposal. Together, let us commit to making a difference, no matter how small, in the lives of those around us. To this end, I leave you with words that often conclude a service on a Sunday at Hopewell. Go in peace. Have courage. Hold fast to what is good. Return no one evil for evil. Strengthen the faint-hearted. Support the weak. Help those that are suffering. Honor all people. Love and serve the Lord your God. And know that the blessing of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit is with you today and always. Amen.
Believe it or not, having lost the band, lost the bass drum for the pipers, had rain this morning, we're still on schedule because at exactly 12 o'clock, we get to hear the Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence. And that's important because on a Saturday, 250 years ago right now, someone stood up downtown at Trade and Tryon on the top of the steps at the courthouse, a man named Thomas Polk, and he spoke the very same words you're about to hear from our own Joe Sailors. So it's not long, it's much shorter than the big declaration, but it's very important. Listen to it. Come on, Joe.
I've been given a couple of honors in my life. One is I held the scrolls for a Jewish boy who was going through his bar mitzvah. And I found out many years later just how important that role was. So here I've been asked to give the reading of our own declaration. Resolve that wherever directly and indirectly abetted or in any way, form or matter, countenance and unchartered, and the dangers envisioned in our rights as claimed by Great Britain, is an enemy to this country, to America, and to the inherent and inalienable rights of every man. Resolve that the citizen of Mecklenburg County do hereby dissolve political bands which have connected us to the mother country, and hereby dissolve ourselves all allegiance to the British Crown and all political connections, contract or association with that nation who have wrongfully attempted on the rights and liberties and humanity, shed the innocent blood of Americans and patriots at Lexington. Resolve that we do hereby declare ourselves a free and independent people. We are, and right ought to be, a sovereign and self-governing association under the control, no power, other than that of our God and our general government of this Congress, to the maintenance of which independence so solemnly pledged to each other, our mutual cooperation, our lives, our fortune, our most sacred honor. Resolve that we now acknowledge the existence and control of no law or legal officer civil or military, within this country, we do hereby obtain and adopt as a rule of life all and every of the former laws, wherein nothing less than the crown of Great Britain never be considered as holding rights, privileges, immunities, and authority therein. Resolve that also further decree that each and every military officer in this country is hereby reinstated to his former command and authority, he acting conformably to these resolutions, and that every member present at this delegation shall henceforth be a civil officer, a justice of the peace, in the character of a committee man, to issue, process, near and determine all matters of controversy according to the said adopted laws, to preserve peace and union and harmony in the said country, and to every exertion to spread the love of country and the fire of freedom throughout America until a more general and organized government can be established in this province. So decreed.
And the crowd said, "Huzzah! Huzzah! Huzzah!" And the crowd said, "Huzzah! Huzzah! Huzzah!"
We've got the Mecklenburg DAR, we've got the Masonic Lodge, the Mecklenburg Historical Society. This is Laura Alexander. She wrote a book with Sarah Sue Hardinger about the Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence signers. This is a booth on Hopewell Presbyterian Church and some historical reenactors. That smells so good. I just love the way fire smells.
On top, but I was burning the top of the pie and not cooking the bottom, so I took the coals off.
Blueberry pie is in the pot on the ground.
In the pot on the fire with the lid, venison stew.
Oh man, I didn't realize anything was actually cooking. No wonder it smells so good.
Venison stew has potatoes, carrots, onions, rutabagas, venison, rosemary, lovage, which is like celery flavor, and another mixture of spices and some sage, salt, pepper. And the local area.
Yeah, that's a lot for that time period though.
The British would have used a 75 caliber ball, so a little bit larger than that. But the farmers, militia, probably would have had a rifle. And so this has rifling on the inside, just like we have a rifle today. This is 45 caliber. And so you would have wrapped the ball in a patch, put it down here at the muzzle, rammed it down to get it started, and then pull the ramrod and ram this all the way down. And then you just put a little bit of powder in the pan, same way you do here. And then you pull the cock back, and then when the flint, as you can see, hits the steel, that creates a little bit of a spark. And then the spark sets off the powder in the pan. That goes down into the barrel and explodes the majority of the barrel, or the majority of the powder in the barrel. So that sends the ball downrange.
And then this is where you wear this around your
keep,
shoulder and keep all your supplies.
Well, you just keep the cartridge.
Oh, okay.
See, this is filled with black powder, and you just would tear it with your teeth, drop the powder down, and drop the ball down, ram it with a ramrod. You could use fire 3 times in a minute with this. This takes a lot more to load, so you're only at 1 in a minute. So these guys are hiding behind trees, boulders. They're operating by themselves or 2 or 3 others, trying to pick off the British officers, or in the case of the British really never had very many riflemen. But you're trying to shoot at a long distance here and keeping out of their way. You're not standing in a line like these folks.
This is what we originally used to make marshmallow, like the sweet treat. Right. But also when you boil this down, that same gelatinous stickiness that turns into the marshmallow part is going to be really good at coating the throat and coating the stomach. So it's good for sour stomach or acid, what we would think of like acid reflux now, especially now that we're in the middle of the Revolutionary War. We are talking about certain supplies being cut off and our sugar is not grown here. So you're going to need some sort of sweetener you can raise yourself, which is going to have to be either something like honey or sorghum, but sorghum requires a lot more to process it. So we're not going to have a lot of just white sugar easily available. So we're going to use honey to sweeten and honey to help mix with our medicines, especially to make the children take it.
Community singers of Lake Norman, join us, would you please, as we sing together our national anthem. I'll invite you to rise as we do that.
It's time we get help.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for and blue waves of grain, for purple mountains, majesties above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Oh, beautiful for pilgrim feet who stirred in passion stress, a thoroughfare for freedom meet across the wilderness. America, America, God shed blood in every fog, confirm thy soul in self-control, thy liberty in law. America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
All right, I'm going to start with a question. When do you think the American Revolution started?
Back in the 1750s.
17 what?
1750s.
1750s. Any other takers? 1750s?
Whenever Captain Jack took it up to Philadelphia, whatever year that was.
Well,
I start with the question about when do you think the American Revolution started? Because I want you to sort of put yourself back in that time and think about the morning of May the 19th of 1775. You live in the town of Charlotte. You and the other 112 people or so that live there. It's not a very big place. It's dirty, muddy. There's about 6 houses, 2 or 3 buildings. Jack's got a tavern. There's a mercantile store. And you wake up that morning, and as far as you know, you're a citizen of the British nation. And you report to King George, eventually. And you're supposed to get up and spend pounds sterling. And that's who you've been ever since you got to this country, whether you were born here or whether you recently came. The day happens, the night happens. You wake up the next morning, and somebody says to you, get downtown, get to the square. There's going to be something happening at noon, and you want to hear it. And you go down there at noon, and this guy named Thomas Polk comes out of the courthouse with a piece of paper in his hand, and he starts reading it. And when you get to the third resolve of that paper, it says, we are no longer British citizens, we are a free and independent people. So what do you think? Scare you? Make you happy? Make you doubtful? Where would your mind be at that point? Go back and think what happened before that. Someone said 1750, not far off. I'd put it 1760-ish in the time of the regulators. Any of you Outlander fans? Everybody smirks like, no, I'm not an Outlander fan. You remember the episode when Jamie's wearing a red coat and he takes it off and throws it down and says, never again? That's the end of the regulator movement. That's when his son-in-law gets hung. That's a bunch of people that are up one county north of here in Rowan saying, we are done with the officials that the Crown has put in place, and we want them out, and we want to talk to the governor and get them thrown out. And the governor says instead, I will bring cannons and I will bring the military and I will shoot at you and you will go home. They don't like that very much. Nobody likes that very much. Even the people that were helping out on the British side, they had their own reason to help out. That's sort of a little side story that Thomas Polk said, we'll send our militia to help put down the regulators if, Governor, you will give us a college of our own and if you will kill the vestry laws. I'll tell you in a minute what that means. Governor tries to do that. King outlaws both of them 2 years later, so it doesn't happen. But at the moment, they thought it was going to happen, so they were trying to be good guys and help themselves out. But the guys that had really been put hard up in Rowan County, they were being actually built out of their land. They had judges and lawyers and JPs and sheriffs who would get together and they would tax the land. They'd increase the taxes enough that the sheriff could make some money, the JP could make some money, and it had to be done in hard currency. And hard currency just about couldn't be found. So between the one and the other, it was really easy for the sheriff to say, foreclosed, sheriff's sale, So who had a little bit of specie to go buy that land? The sheriff and the lawyers and the JPs and their friends. So they're basically being bilked out of their land. Nobody likes to be bilked out of their land. Everybody came to this country because they wanted to own their land. No one in Europe owned their land, actually. If they called it their land, it wasn't their land. It was owned by whoever was the top of the chain, who gave some of it to the ones under that, who let some of them underneath that. The whole feudal system, still without land, was in existence. So nobody actually owned their land. They rented it all the time. They wanted to come here and own their land. Once you've owned land, somebody takes it away from you, you are furious. Anybody ever heard of the Vestry Acts? Okay. Vestry Acts was a British law that said the only person who can legitimately marry two people is an Anglican minister, and the only person who can legitimately baptize someone is an Anglican minister. There wasn't an Anglican minister on this side of the state. Therefore, what happens? Every marriage in this part of the state is illegitimate, and every child born in this part of the state is illegitimate. You don't want your child illegitimate to begin with, but they also can't inherit by British law. So another way to get your land. If your kid's illegitimate, you can't inherit your land, so inherit your lands, it goes back to whoever had it, so another way to get at your money. These are very staunch Presbyterians. Presbyterians believe in sin, and they seriously believe in sin, and they believe that if you don't do it right, you're going to end up in hell. Determination and all that is very strong at this point. And so if you are illegitimately married and illegitimate children, that is a very, very, very serious thing. So all right, the British Crown has set it up so that they can steal your land and bastardize your children. Aren't you happy? No. This has been going on now for a couple decades, off and on. And we get to 1775, and here in Mecklenburg County, the people say, enough is enough. We've had enough of this nonsense. We're going to do something. We're going to get a hold of the governor, and we're going to ask him what on earth is going on and what can we do about it. And we're going to have a meeting. And the meeting's going to be formed by Thomas Pope, who was the founder of Charlotte. Side story. Thomas Pope sort of snuck it under the covers to found Charlotte. It was either going to be Concord or it was going to be Charlotte, was going to be the county seat. So Pope built a courthouse in the middle of Trade and Tryon. Then when they went to the legislature, that was still the British legislature, and said which town should be the court, the center house, where the courthouse is, Pope says, we already have a courthouse. And of course they say, well, then we don't have to spend the money to build a courthouse. So magically Charlotte becomes the center of the county. Thomas Pope is a clever fellow. Anyway, founder of Charlotte, he stands up. He's supposed to go out and talk to the 9 militia units. Now, some people say 11, some people say 13. I just spent a year and a half with my friend Laura Alexander Elliott back there digging out information about this. And if you read the Declaration, it says we will leave our militia units as they are now. And then you read the resolves and there are 9 militia units. So the mathematician in me says there was 9 militia units to begin with, too. Could have been more, but I think there were 9 because that would carry through. That accounts for 2 people per militia unit, that's 18 people. There weren't 18 people in the room. There were actually 28 delegates in the room. And we found out there's other people in the room, too. Because as we did our research, we found 2 or 3 or 4 teenage people who came. Hello. Didn't miss everybody? Barely? Maybe? No? They brought teenage helpers, either their sons or their nephews or somebody. And there were also brothers and things. So we figured there were maybe 30, 35 people in the room, actually. Considering the room was 40 by 20, that's not all that you get to stuff in there, probably. But of the 28 named delegates, 18 would have been with the militia units. The other 10 we tried to figure out. Not real clear. But I think what it was there were 6 members of the Committee of Safety, if you count all 6. A lot of people say 5, but we found a 6th one too. There were 2 very prominent citizens who were over 60 years of age, and therefore they couldn't have been in the militia, because that's topped out at 60. But they were prominent enough, they probably were invited. And then there were 2 people who probably would never have been in the militia. One was because he lived in Salisbury, not in Mecklenburg County, but he was on their committee of safety and down here probably as a lawyer to see what was going on. And the other one was a minister who maybe wouldn't have been in the militia anyway, named Hezekiah. That accounts for the other 10 people. That makes 28. That's who we start with. I know someone said 26 earlier in the day, but I believe there were 28 people who were named delegates that could go. They get together and they're going to put together some sort of petition to the governor. May 19th, they're talking. A rider comes into town as fast as he can because he's spreading the word that the battles of Lexington and Concord have taken place and British soldiers have killed American citizens. Now, you're there to talk to the governor about some things like taking your land and bastardizing your children. And now you've got a case where that same governor's people up in Massachusetts are killing you. Step further. And so their immediate reaction was, all right, enough talk, we're done. So they put together their thoughts and they asked 3 of the people, that guy from Salisbury who's a lawyer, that reverend who was there, who has the ministerial thought process about writing things, and a guy named Dr. Ephraim Brevard. Fascinating fellow. And they said, please go off and put together some thoughts about what you just heard us talk about. They do this until 2 in the morning. They come back at the middle of the night and they say to these people who have been waiting for them, apparently, we've got it, here it is. They read these 5 paragraphs. If you were here at noon, you heard them. And nobody says much. They said, yep, that's what we said. Yep, we agree with that. The one thing they did say was, wait a second, we all took an oath to this crown and to this king, either when we came to this country or when we got land or when we turned 21, we had to make an oath of loyalty to that king. We're Presbyterians, we don't lightly break oaths. How do we break our oath? And the argument was put forth that an oath is a contract, and if the other party breaks the contract, you no longer have to keep your side. And since King George was shooting you, he was breaking the contract, and therefore you didn't have to keep your side. That seemed to sway enough people that 28 people signed the document. And so the document sits there with 28 people, and they say we're going to get up in the morning, and as soon as people are awake, we're going to read this to them and tell them what's going on. Somebody says, don't do that. You want to get a bigger crowd. You want to tell as many people as you can at once. Send out the word that you're going to do this. And so, you know, by the grapevine that happens, word gets sent out. And so they say by noon that day, there were as many people in town square as there were families in the county. So pretty much everybody sent a representative to see what was going on. Thomas Polk gets up on these stairs and he reads the 5 things. And people are huzzahing like crazy. Huzzah! And throwing their hats in the air. This is a 2-story high courthouse. The hats land on top of the courthouse. So they must have been pretty happy. So we have hats on top of the courthouse. People huzzahing like crazy. A few people in the corner, what do you think they're doing? Not everybody always says the same thing at the same time, right? Think somebody's going, oops. Now wait a second. If we're not part of the British Empire, am I going to get for my store what I got before? Can I sell to the British Empire what I sold before? Is my kid who's in the British Army for some reason going to be okay? Do I really think this is a good idea? Lots of people are thinking lots of things. As a matter of fact, by the 21st of May, we're told that some of those people are going, that might have been a bit rash. Maybe we shouldn't have done that. Because when we signed that, we basically signed our death warrant. We just committed treason, and we signed it. So they're thinking a little bit about it, and it's probably one of the reasons why it was never published. After all, if you just signed your own death warrant, would you really go publish it? I don't think I would. I don't think I would. And besides which, there was no paper in town. They would have had to gone far away to find a paper to get it published anyhow. What they did was they set about writing the laws they wanted to run by. This is what we now call the Mecklenburg Resolves. Neither of these were called the Mecklenburg Resolves or the Mecklenburg Declaration at the time. But we call them the Mecklenburg Resolves. It's 21 laws by which the county will be governed. And that is what they did publish, because people needed to know what the laws were going to be. But somehow the way they wrote the laws, remember there's a lawyer in this, somehow the way they wrote the laws, they didn't write them as treasonous. They were just making order out of chaos, apparently. So, that's how the Mecklenburg Declaration and the Mecklenburg Resolves got written. And why they got written. Yes, we believed in fighting taxation without representation. Yes, we didn't like the tea in the harbor and all that stuff. But down here, it had a whole lot more to do with stealing land and bastardizing children than it did about tea. And maybe that's why we did it so fast in a day, because it was much more visceral for us than it was for the intellectuals that were talking up north, and why we could do it in 24 hours instead of 16 months. Questions?
What's his name? Ogletree? Ogletree.
Pardon, say? The governor found out about the Mecklenburg Declaration. As a matter of fact, he sent it in a report to his superiors back in London in one of his regular reports, and he called it the most treasonous document he'd ever seen. Finally, a newspaper published it several months later, and he saw it, and he said it was the most treasonous document he'd ever seen. He didn't know what to do with these people. That copy of that newspaper was attached to that report. And you may have heard about the controversy about whether it was the MECDEC was real. One of the reasons they went looking for that particular newspaper was because there was proof of it within a matter of a few weeks that it was published and real. We have the governor saying it's there and it's terrible and all that, but to find the exact words of it, they went to look for the newspaper. The newspaper was in the archives of the British government. Apparently along the way in about 1820 something, the ambassador, our ambassador to Britain, went there, checked out that report and that newspaper, returned the report, never returned the newspaper. There is a clipping in the archives that says removed by such and such for someone else's use, never returned. So the only copy that we have documentation that ever existed in a stored form is gone. The document itself was kept by John McNitt Alexander, secretary of the entire convention. He lived out here at Alexandriana, which is at 115 and 485, more or less. And his house burned in 1800. The part that where his study was burned pretty much completely, but he had another room where he did some work, and his notes from the convention were in that room. So what they call the original was in the burn part, but all the notes that they were made from was in the other part. So when they said what was in it, he went and got the notes out, reconstructed the document from his notes, and that's what we have today. So because there is no original, there's this big deal about it. But have you ever seen the original of the National Declaration? What you saw was a fair copy of it.
I've never seen the original.
The original would be written on multiple pieces of paper. It would have all sorts of scratch outs by Thompson, the secretary, because it was changed like 164 times by the convention. That would be the original. No one has any idea where that is. So, what's the deal? We've got copies of ours. They've got copies of theirs. You know, it's kind of the same thing to me. It isn't like you can go Xerox it. Somebody's got to rewrite it in what's called a fair copy. And you know, there's more than one copy of the National Declaration with signatures on it. Do you really think those 65 people stood there in a line over and over again signing documents? They didn't even sign it all at the same time. It took till August to even get every state represented on it. And people came to the Continental Congress later on and thought, I want my name on there, and they signed it too. They hadn't even been there. So, you know, it's kind of a mishmash. We think that you were going to ask about Ogletree, weren't you?
Yes, I was.
There's 28 original signers. There's 27 names everybody talks about now. The missing one is a guy named Duncan Ogletree. Duncan Ogletree is the guy that owned the mercantile office, the business, the general store. Remember I said one of the things might have gone through their mind is, can I get from England what I used to get? Can I sell to England what I used to sell? Well, he couldn't get from England what he used to get very easily. But when Cornwallis came into town in 1781 and took over Charlotte for a few weeks, Ogletree became his quartermaster and supplied the British Army. The other signers were unhappy, to say the least, and so they removed his name.
Talk about some Boston tea.
And no fair copy after that ever contained his name. His name, his signature is very interesting too. We were able to find 27 of the 28 signatures. It took a little doing. We found one document that had 23. A good friend of mine's a signature collector and gave me 3 more. One of the descendants gave us one. So we got all of them except for one. The one we cannot find a copy of is Reverend Hezekiah Boss. He died within a year of signing the Mecklenburg Declaration, and he was a pastor, so he really didn't always own his own land. The church owned the land he lived on. So finding his name anywhere in the records is kind of tough unless it's in the church records, and the church records were all destroyed, and the only ones they have now date from the mid-1800s. So we couldn't find his name in print. But everybody else's signature we got. And Ogletree's is just a whole bunch of O's. Ooh. Remember when you learned to make O's in school? Well, that's what his signature looks like. You know, kind of like a doctor when they sign it too much. It looks like that. So that's what happened to Ogletree. Oh, by the way, they ran him out of town. They didn't like him that much in 1781. They said that he had to leave town. He actually would never sign, he would never swear the oath to the new country and in 1776. And so they said he had to put up a very large bond to even stay in the county. He didn't for a long time. Finally he did. But then he did this a few years later, and then they said he had to leave town. Actually, he went to John McNitt's house and he said, "Please protect me." And McNitt said, "No, you're a screw up. No, we're not doing that. You're out of here. Matter of fact, I suggest you get out of this county before sunrise or you will not be alive." And he went, we think, first to Georgia and maybe on to Florida, but no one seems to know where he ended up or where he's buried.
Wow.
If you want to know some more stories about him, find One Day Revolution. There's copies over there. It talks about this story, like I just told you. It tells you something about all the signers and some of their helpers, like good old James Jack and Joseph Graham, who was the hero, the nephew hero who was slashed 9 times and shot 3 times and still saved by Susanna Amanda Alexander, whose name is in there too.
I don't guess I'm gonna get everything out, but this is probably a good little representation of stuff, because not only is the story about Hopewell, one of the earliest churches that is in Mecklenburg County. I think it goes back to 1762, or have you already heard the date? Was it 62?
I believe so.
Okay. So, what we know is that this here is the oldest section of the cemetery where the early settlers were. And these folks, if you think about it, 1760s, right in that time period is also when King George III came to power. We had just finished with the French and Indian War, so this location was part of the British Empire. North Carolina, the colony of North Carolina. At that time period, and I know y'all have been listening to the MEC Deck and everybody's all patriotic and everything like that, but you also had people that were loyal British subjects when this church was founded. And so you have to wonder what happened from the early period to 1775, May 20, that's 13 years later. So one of the things that the British did We've heard about taxation with no representation and other taxes that were taking place. One of the biggest things that I think leads to the Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence is land. In the 1st of May of 1775, one of the gentlemen whose name is mentioned on the marker here, he's not buried here, he was a member here at Hopewell Presbyterian, was Major John Davidson. Major John Davidson, signer of the Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence, is buried at Rural Hill. So if you go down Neck Road, you turn out there, you'll find similar rock walls just like these at the family cemetery out there. How many people have been there? All right, 1, 2, 3, 4. Half my audience. Very good. And there's a marker out there that shows him and that he was a signer of the MECDEC as well. In the 1st of May, he also signed another document besides the Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence that he was swearing his allegiance as a loyal British subject. Not many people know about this document.
You got me on that one.
In 1772, South Carolina was drawing a boundary line that came to separate the states. It hit the Catawba Indian Reservation. If you ever look at that little drop there, there was a square that was granted by the King of England, so this was during the colonial period. The Catawba Indians, Catawba River over here, Catawba Indians Reservation was part of the boundary line. South Carolina, actually I think it goes up like this and down like this because it cuts into North Carolina, and South Carolina kept it. Well, here's an interesting thing. The surveyors figured out from the coast coming this way, North Carolina had grabbed an extra 5 miles.
No surprise there. I'd grab 5 miles.
It's straight from the ocean all the way till you hit the Catawba Indian Reservation. If you look, it goes up and then it comes back down, but it doesn't come all the way back down to where it would be even. What did South Carolina do? Now they have a grievance and they want to grab the 5 miles taken there and what would be going east or west from there, an extra 5 miles, 10 miles. Well, you got to pay us back, but we got to have our space going west too. What does that do? Major John Davidson and other wealthy men and landowners owned land down there. I'm sure you've heard of York County.
Yep.
Rock Hill, below the Catawba River there. It's part of this territory. And they called it the New Acquisition. And then you also have a group down at Brattsville that calls themselves the New Acquisition Militia. Okay. How many people have bought a house here, owned a house? How many people have heard of mortgages? Mortgages. Everybody's heard of a mortgage, so you know what a mortgage is. I owe you, and you pay that back, then it's your house, except for they still have taxes on that. But anyways.
And interest.
Well, no, I mean after you paid it off, you still have to pay the government taxes. And the tax piece is part of why I said that, because it's the government. South Carolina now gets this extra 10 miles. There are people that were landowners down there in this 10-mile area that had already bought their land from North Carolina. The royal governor of North Carolina took their payment, so now they paid in full for their land because they bought it from the government. Back then it was cheap. but they already paid for it once. The royal governor of South Carolina wanted them to pay for it again. A second mortgage, you kind of get where I'm going with that flavor. I know y'all have heard about the patriotic and the fervent spirit of the patriots wanting to do the MEC deck. I think it was a powder keg over the land. If you think about it, what would make Mecklenburg County, so far from Boston, want to rebel and put it in writing? Especially just a couple weeks before. This is a good map. That's Mecklenburg County right there. But before it extended all the way out. Oh, perfect! There we go. There's my little thing. So the line was going here, and they realized that they were taking 5 miles too much. So they went up here, and then they went back. So this here goes straight down, and they're reclaiming. It should have been here. So this here is basically through that road there. If they had done it the right way, the state line probably would have been there from the coast. And then it would come out on this side of the triangle. So I think the surveyors forgot this little triangle back here. That was the Catawba Indian reservation right there. That says Catawba Nation right there.
Do you want me to hold that for you? The other side?
Yes, yes. We got some wind.
Really?
It helps stabilizes it. And she's my dear friend, so she comes to my rescue all the time. So I think the state line would have probably been there and there if it had been drawn from the coast the right way. But as you can see, we are into, right in here, the Catawba River is a boundary line with Mecklenburg County, and now this was Tryon County, but Lincoln County and Gaston County, but it dropped down into this area. And these folks up in here were buying land down in here too, because one thing, they were land speculators. There weren't a lot of people here, so if you bought land, then you have an asset you can sell and make money off of it. So a lot of people in Mecklenburg County, and Rowan County was pretty big too, because part of this over here, this is showing you the original of Mecklenburg County. The little diamond is Cabarrus County today. So this is the original Mecklenburg County after the separation of the counties over here, Tryon County. But it did used to go all the way across to the mountains, to the Appalachians. This line right here, there's Salisbury. This is the Rowan County line, and that was also called the Granville line. The Lord Granville owned up north. Granville grants are in the land to the north of the state. To the south were King's grants. The king owned the land here, so they were making King's grants. And so the original grants were from the King of England. And so Mecklenburg County was part of the King's grants area. So was this down here. Hence the reason why Major John Davidson from here was petitioning the king with the grievance over South Carolina, wanting to make them pay for the land again. So it was hot and heavy at the 1st of May, because shots, they hadn't learned that the shots had been fired at Lexington and Concord. That's a long distance away, and they didn't have cell phones back then, you know. So really? No. There's the Great Wagon Road. The internet was the Great Wagon Road. Highway 29 coming down from Pennsylvania, Reading, Pennsylvania, straight down through the Shenandoah Valley to here. So it took about a month, because it was the 19th of April, before they got the news in Charlotte. Hence they did the declaration the next day. So it took a whole month for word to travel. The first shot heard around the world. We didn't hear it for a month. Yes. So that's kind of how that happens there. And so the map here is a really good demonstration of that dynamic, and I believe it is one of the major forces of why Mecklenburg County decided to declare their independence. If we declare our independence, However, we don't have to pay for the land again. All our problems go away. Which is kind of, sort of, if you think about it, Thomas Jefferson had this same clever idea. Thomas Jefferson, if you know, he was a man who put a lot of things on credit. He was in debt to a lot of British bankers. You think the American independence was just about freedom from our creditors? Aha! There is a book up in Virginia that talks about the reluctant patriots, the leaders. If you ever want to read that, it talks about, you know, going into the court system in Virginia, and they're not able to enforce British law to make people to pay for the debts that they have. It was kind of like starting to become a common practice. Hence, part of that, if you put that together into that idea, it is about liberty and freedom. But some of that liberty and freedom was to get free from debt and having to pay the government for the land. So, you know, being independent took off some of the bondage that debt as well. And I know that's not something that's commonly talked about, but if you do a lot of reading into it, and you really look at some of the things behind some of our leaders that were doing it, you know, it's just being real. Anyway, we are somewhere over in this area here. There's Killian's Creek, Leaper. So down in this area here, I think is where we are, with Charlottetown down there. And so Cowan's Ford is out in this area here. It doesn't have that bend on it on the old map. Do you know where it is? Kathy?
Oh no.
Where is it at? Where are we at right here on this map?
I said, oh no.
Oh. Sometimes you do know.
I was looking around to see.
Sometimes you know things.
And sometimes you don't.
I think it's in this general area because I think the creeks, these creeks names here, because across from Rule Hill, Killian's Creek.
Yeah, Killian.
Right. So Neck Road is right up there. So I know Killian's Creek is right in here. So we're not too far from this area being where Hopewell is. Is basically what I'm just giving you a proximity. It's not on the map. So we'll put the map down now. Your service, Vanna, has been...
Vanna?
Vanna what?
I am not Vanna White.
You came up and helped me.
Well, anyway.
There you go.
My patriots came down the Great Wagon Road. They were born in the 1730s in Campbelltown, Scotland.
Oh.
Yeah. So there.
So,
I gotta go visit the tents now, y'all.
Here is a painting of the Battle of Cowan's Ford. Now, the most preeminent Revolutionary War patriot that is buried here in the Hopewell Cemetery is General Davidson. Got that big monument with the bronze plaque on it over there. So, and we will identify the names on that marker, and then I'll walk you through to where I know the names are, except for we're not going to walk to Rule Hill and see Major John Davidson. I won't take you that far. But I am essentially dressed as General Davidson would probably have appeared that day, civilian. He was the Brigadier General of the Salisbury Military District, Salisbury being the main city. George Washington, when he came through Charlotte in 1792, called Charlotte a trifling place. It only had about 25 structures. Salisbury was much bigger and much more well established at the time. So if you were anybody in the area, that's where you would have been. Plus, that's where the military headquarters were for that same purpose. The Yadkin River in that direction, because the Catawba River's in that direction, was basically the boundary line. I know it's not a perfect line that's straight because it's a river, but if you start at South Carolina and go essentially straight up, everything west of that was the Salisbury Military District. There was no Tennessee, so the boundary line essentially was the Mississippi River. Well, yes, but they didn't know what was out that far. There were settlers that were over in Nashville, So I just kind of give you to the Mississippi because that's where us European settlers would have at least been that far. And there was claims by France on the other side of the Mississippi at that time. And Spain down in Mexico, up into California. So we had other other empires in the world that were laying claim to land all the way over to the Mississippi. I mean, all the way to the Pacific. So I pretty much put it at the Mississippi because Nashville, it was Nashboro then. There was a settlement there. The Cherokees didn't like us being there either. So they were attacking in that area. One of their leaders, one of the young leaders of the Cherokees, he broke off. His name was Dragging Canoe, Chief Dragging Canoe, and he moved down to Tennessee, to Chattanooga area, and there was a creek or a river that was the Chickamauga, and they changed their name from Cherokee because they basically were the ones that were going out and fighting. The old leaders in the North Carolina mountains were trying to have peace with the white settlements into the Appalachian Mountains, and even Nancy Ward, full Cherokee, she had married a white gentleman, took the last name of Ward, and had some children with him. She was for peace. She was a cousin to Dragging Canoe, so even in the Cherokees there was divisions of who wanted peace, who didn't want peace, and Dragging Canoe didn't want to give up land, and but white settlers were still coming in droves down the Great Wagon Road, and we still wanted land, so that brought some points of contention there. So one of the things about the Battle of the Cowan's Ford, it was in a bigger plan of General Greene to bring to Salisbury a battle. It needed General Davidson to be a part of that. The untimely death of General Davidson, and I think in the picture here, he's right here on the horse. He has his sword, and he drew it out so they were able to identify him as an officer and were able to take a shot at him. But I don't take this map for precise accuracy. I am working on the book of the Battle of Cowan's Ford, and I am digging into the real life eyewitnesses, the pensioners, and I have identified over 3,000 pension records that were on the Catawba River, or up and down the Catawba River on February 1st, 1781. So if you understand the dynamics about General Greene's plan, he wanted to ruin Cornwallis. The victory at Cowpens was a victory on January the 17th, approximately 2 weeks before, by General Daniel Morgan. General Daniel Morgan was directly under the command of General Greene. And General Greene had given him literally paperwork that said he was the supreme commander, Daniel Morgan, west of the Catawba River over there.
It's all lies. I wouldn't believe a word he said.
She's heard me many times.
I have.
Yes, 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 yes. I need you up here to help me.
No, I'm going back.
I hear you. Necessity. Anyways, and she's part of the Mecklenburg militia, so this is General Davidson who was commanding the Mecklenburg militia, so she's heard me before.
That's right.
Yes, yes. So, anyways, see, she agreed with me, so I got something right. Anyways, this here would be the Mecklenburg side. The other side of the river was Lincoln County. Basically, if you go up to Highway 73 and you turn and you cross the bridge at the base of the dam, there's a place where you can go that's the lookout point, and you would be on the side of the river that the British were, and they were looking across. The island in the middle was where the horse ford would have went across. Some people and my research believe that the ford is underwater. I do not believe that it is underwater. I believe that it is on this side of the dam. One of the things about modern roads with pavement, they don't change. But when you have dirt roads that wagon wheels put 2 ruts in, they wash out. It was washed out by the 1820s, and a new road was established. One of the gentlemen that drew a map in the 1820s was at that point he became General Joseph Graham. He had the iron furnace, the Vincennes, over in Lincoln County. I think there's a chapter of the DAR over there for that. Right. Vesuvius furnace. So if you look at his 1820s map that he did for Archibald Murphy, he draws the 2 fords. He says it goes here now, but he doesn't keep drawing it. The Lucas house is on the map, and he says this is the way it goes now. This is the Revolutionary Ford. So if you go back and you look at that map, you'll see it's south of the one that's above. I believe the Lucas house is underwater. I believe the Revolutionary Ford is south of the dam, because you'll have a lot of stuff that the Duke Power puts out. And I think it was Dr. Chalmers Davidson, who's buried out at Rural Hill, also a historian at Davidson College, who he thought it was the Ford that I believe is the Lucas House Ford, and not the actual Revolutionary Ford that is south of the river. One of the things, if you take a map and you can measure it, Graham, also in his book, History on the American Revolution, he says that it is about 160 yards north of the coming out place, which was the wagon ford. There was the horse ford, there was the wagon ford. What we see here where Davidson at that they're portraying is basically the wagon ford. You don't see the island in this picture because it's down here. So they missed coming and going across the wagon ford. One of the reasons why I believe that they did, if you look at, if you're deeply interested in it, like I am, Robert Henry also notes in his book, in his narrative, if you have to read through it, it's not at the section where it talks about where he thinks Davidson got killed, but Davidson didn't get killed there on the edge of the river. They retreated back up the hill. And in the pension records, eyewitness accounts, one guy says that he heard when Davidson got shot. And this is an interesting thing. I brought with me, this is a rifle. This is, if you're going to bring food home to eat for your wife to cook, the deer or the squirrel, hopefully you get a deer, then you're going to have a rifle. And think of it, gentlemen, I know you know, but I know ladies, you probably have seen a football game at least once in your life. The quarterback, when he puts the spin on the football, it spirals. It's a straight shot. So you have rifling inside of a rifle that is going to make the shot go straight. One of the things is to be steady enough to be able to shoot a rifle. You can't be in a river with a rushing current. And since we have recent history of Hurricane Helene, and we had water rushing down the Catawba River, I mean, cars are getting washed away. I don't think a man can stand in the river and shoot somebody. And General Cornwallis actually has a written letter that he wrote Lord George Germain. He explicitly gave an order for no one to shoot from the river. In fact, General Leslie's horse toppled over. General Charles O'Hara's horse toppled over. A horse is heavy, like a car. It can move them. Yes. How did the men cross? I'm going to use this as an example, but think of it just as a wooden pole. Longer than this. 4 men to a wooden pole to walk across. While one person's foot is up, 4 feet are on the ground. To stabilize the soldiers going across, and even in Joseph Graham's book, he writes that they had the poles that they discarded once they came across the river. You're not going to go across a rushing river, and it says in the book that it was waist deep. Rushing water, waist deep. It can move a car, it can knock a horse over, it can wash a man down the river. So, that is how they crossed the river. Even with that, Robert Henry says there are over 100 British redcoats that drowned. They didn't even get shot. They drowned because they couldn't hold on to the pole. The water, the current pulled them, probably the guy that was on the south end, because there was, I don't know, it could have taken all 4 of them, you know, if all of them didn't have their feet and they got wobbly, you know, it could take out a whole group. In the reports that I have found, the British Army, the whole time of the American Revolution, the whole war, 8 years, British deserters did not amount to more than 5%. Cornwallis, when he left South Carolina after the defeat on January the 17th at Cowpens, the head count, a roster was taken. Cornwallis needed how many men he had. The day after, on the 18th, General Alexander Leslie joined him with another 1,000 men. So he nearly lost 1,000 on the 17th. For sure, there were captured 600. There were supposed to be British soldiers there of 1,000, but the horses rode away. There were about 250 horses. So that's 850. So I don't know what happened to the extra 150, whether they were prisoners or they just went missing. But when he did take a roll call, that roll call is documented in the Cornwallis papers. The next major battle is at Guilford Courthouse in Greensboro. At Guilford Courthouse, before that battle, he takes another roll call. So he started out with about 2,500 men in South Carolina, and he ends up there. He has about 2,250 approximately. So he's lost about 250 men. In that example, British soldiers didn't desert because they knew they would be killed down here. Redcoats?
Where are they going to go?
That's 10% of Cornwallis's army. The Battle of Cowan's Ford represents approximately, if we know 100 died there, if you go to Salisbury and I think it's near City Hall or the museum, and then on one of the other roads, it's the English cemetery. Cornwallis took wagons from here with wounded. He also left wounded at the Lucas House with a surgeon, but he took them to Salisbury. The reason it's called the English cemetery is because he buried a lot of soldiers that they didn't have penicillin, got wounded and died. So that 250, if 100 were lost on the river here, I know that there were supposedly, he gave a report of about 30 wounded on the banks that he left. So that's 130. If you have, I don't know, 50 more, 70 more die in Salisbury, that's 200. You know, and then they were also, when they would send them out on foraging parties to go find food, the Americans were capturing them and taking them prisoner. So there's possibility for an extra 150. I don't believe the British soldiers from January, February, March, 2 months, when 8 years, 5% desertion, to 10% loss of Cornwallis's troops in 2 months happened without the loss at the Battle of Cowan's Ford, which is General Davidson. So I think he is the preeminent patriot that is buried in this cemetery. There are others listed on there. Davidson, this was not his home church. His home church was Center Presbyterian, that is below Mooresville, 85, Mooresville, in Mount Morin. So that's where his wife lived. That's where his plantation was. Technically at the time, it was not Iredell County, it was Rowan County, because the county line went across there. So Davidson was killed 7 miles away from here. He was brought to the Richard Berry house afterwards. His body was stripped by Cornwallis of all the clothes. One of the things...
His wallet. You found it.
I found his wallet. His wallet. General Davidson's wallet.
Where'd you find it?
I bought it.
Oh.
Thank you. A leathersmith. But it is actually a reproduction that is just like his. The only thing that I don't have is there is a little pencil holder right here. This church, and Pastor Jeff Lawrence was instrumental in petitioning Her Royal Majesty, Queen Elizabeth II, to bring the wallet here in, I think 2000. And so I also am in the Scottish games, and the only thing that the British government asked was that the head of the public records office in London, who was bringing this, brought this wallet, not this wallet, this is reproduction, but it's well worn, like it would have been John Davidson's wallet, over here, and we went, now this is before 9/11, so we went to the airport, we went out to concourse, I was wearing my kilt, 2 of my brothers and my cousin, we were his bodyguard, we were in kilts. We had bagpipes, we had drums, and we had about 100 people. This guy did not know what to do when he got off the plane. He's coming from London, England, and all these Scots are coming to meet him.
Where's the wallet today?
It's back in London. It came to visit for 1 year.
That's it?
1 year, it was on loan. We took it to Guilford Courthouse, and it was in the museum there on display. It came in on July 3rd. They were supposed to come back and get it the next year, July 3rd. Unfortunately, some of these folks who are in the Scottish community don't know how to ingratiate themselves to the Queen of England. They wrote her letters and demanded that she give it to us, saying it was spoil of war. And the guy waited a whole month later to come back. He didn't want to come back on the official date to pick it up. He was afraid that more Scots would show up and protest. You know, they did have some wars like with Robert the Bruce and William Wallace over in Scotland. So, you know, and see, the Presbyterians are Scots, Irish, and the Patriots are Scots, Irish. Why do you think the British feared us? We're Scots, Irish. Oh my goodness. So, you know, there's a lot of history in the Scots fighting the British. So, you know, George Washington actually said that if he had to make his last stand in America with any group, it will be with the Scots Irish. He knew that their fight with the English went deep and they would not give up ever. Freedom! Freedom!
When's your book coming out?
Huh?
When is your book coming out?
I have written segments on it to do the whole story on all the soldiers. Let's just say I hope to get it finished before the 250th ends, which is actually 2033. I have written a
Of the whole war.
Peace Tree. Yes, 8 years. It just started. I have time.
I'll be excited to read that.
Well, one of the things, just so you know, I'm gonna try to get out the story that I've already developed. There's about 50 soldiers that accompanied the British soldiers from the defeat at Cowpens. Everybody's heard of the story of the race to the Dan?
Mm-hmm.
So, do we imagine that's a long ways off? I mean, I know someone's going to go see it tomorrow. How far is that from here?
To drive, hour and 20 or 30 minutes.
Yeah, on horse.
Okay. How many people know where Fredericksburg, Maryland is? How far away is that?
7.5 hours.
So an hour and a half, 7.5 hours. The British soldiers went there after the loss at Gaffney Cowpens.
It didn't go so fast.
No, it didn't go so fast. It took them about to the end of the year. It was about the time when Cornwallis was surrendering at Yorktown. And, you know, he was chasing Greene and Morgan through here to try to recover his prisoners. After the surrender at Yorktown, the prisoners were reunited. Imprisoned. The surrender at Yorktown. Now, they didn't put Cornwallis there. He did get to stay in a nice place. You know, he's the general. Anyway, he's the Lord.
He didn't come to the surrender. He had,
Yes.
his name was O'Hara, wasn't he?
General O'Hara.
Oh, he was a general.
Yeah, General O'Hara. Yeah, he was the second in command. And he was crossing at the Catawba River too. His horse got toppled over in the river. I mean, Cornwallis's horse got shot. So, and it stayed alive long enough to get to the other side, Mecklenburg side, and then fell dead. Okay, if they're shooting at the horse, maybe they're shooting at the man on the horse?
Maybe.
Yes. Cornwallis could have been dead. It could have been Cornwallis dead instead of General Davidson. This would have been Yorktown here. Yes. So this was a lot of things. That was Greene's plan. He wanted to ruin Cornwallis. He might have also killed him at across the river. Just to segue into a modern scenario. Everybody's heard of Napoleon. Everybody's heard that Napoleon tried to invade Russia.
Right.
He took a large number. Do you know how many people he took to that invasion?
He took a lot, but didn't have to come back.
Was it like 500,000?
Might have been.
When he came back, he probably had about 100,000. One of the problems in going across that terrain was crossing rivers. He lost a large percentage of them in crossing rivers, just like Cornwallis did here. But the risk to stay on the west side of the Catawba River and General Greene in Salisbury getting General Davidson, who under his command, the western half of North Carolina, remember it goes all the way out to Tennessee, had 20,000 men. Cornwallis had 2,500. If he could just get 10% of them, well, he had 3,000 up and down the Catawba River. When I say up and down the Catawba River, how many people have crossed 85? How many people know where the Whitewater Center is? How many people have been in the Whitewater Center? If you go on the Whitewater Center on the right-hand side, walk down that path, there's a trail that goes right there. If you look down, there's a ravine there. That is Tuckasegee Ford Road. That goes to Tuckasegee Crossing. If you go all the way down that path and walk all the way to the river, you will look out and you will see the island in the middle of the river. It has a name. It's called Sadler's Island. If you look from the interstate going towards Gastonia or Gaston County, if you look up, you can see the tip of the island, this side of it. They crossed that island. That was Tuckasegee Ford. Below Tuckasegee Ford, not on. Yes, on this map is the South Fork of the Catawba River, which comes into the Catawba River. So there's Charlotte. So you're going across here, just straight west. So when when you cross here at Tuckasegee Ford in this area, if you go lower than this, you cannot cross the Catawba River. It's heavier until you get down towards 77 where it crosses into Rock Hill. Down there is Nations Ford Road. Back to the Catawba Indian Nation. Nations Ford Road is named after the Catawba Indian Nations. That's why it's called Nations Ford Road. Nations, Catawba, Nations. That was the ford that they used. That's the first ford down here from here that you can cross over. So Cornwallis wasn't going to go south to come across to Charlotte. He had to go up north. And up here, Oliphant's Mill is Sherrill's Ford. Sherrill's Ford is Highway 150 out of Mooresville. Up here, which isn't on the map, this cuts off right there. This is Island Ford up here. It was a big island. Right now, it is Lookout Shoals Lake. Cornwallis wrote Lord George Germain and said that the militia covered the Catawba River approximately 40 miles. If you get a modern map and you look at the scale on it and you measure it out, I came up with 39.5 miles. How Cornwallis, I'm sure he had some kind of little graphs and his measurements and stuff like that. He said the 3,000 militiamen were on the Catawba River in this space. Cowan's Ford is just one of the spaces. You have Tuckasegee Ford. You have over at Rural Hill, Tools Ford. Then you go to Cowan's Ford. Then Beatty's Ford. You know where Brawley School Road is?
Yeah.
It's changed. It used to be Beatty's Ford Road. If you follow it and go back to the river, that was Beatty's Ford. If you go straight across, you'll get the old Beatty's Ford Road on 85 right near China Grove. That's just a straight shot. It was from the Catawba River over to the Yadkin River. That was Beatty's Ford Road. Part of it is still named Beatty's Ford over in Rowan County, but not over in Iredell County. They changed it, all that development.
That's the same road, Presbyterian County to Rowan, and it's the same Beatty's Ford Road.
Yeah, Brawley School, it was Beatty's Ford Road. It was just one straight shot across, going to China Grove. China Grove is on Highway 29 that goes out of Charlotte. 85 pretty much runs parallel to Highway 29. And 29 goes on up into Danville and goes up to South Boston, which is where she's going tomorrow. Yes?
So Charlotte was called Charlottesburg back then, too.
Well, it says Charlottesburg, but it's also been called Charlottetown and so forth. So you have this interesting dynamic here. And so the people here at this congregation, this is the most Northern Presbyterian church, and then you have Center. So these folks were all involved in the battle at Cowan's Ford. I mean, 7 miles away. General Davidson went out and recruited and said, men, I'll pay you for 3 months if you come and serve a month and a half. February and half of March. So, or January and half of February. So the men came out in droves, 3,000 of them. They were going to put a quick end to Cornwallis. That was the whole point. That was the plan that General Greene had. He instilled it into General Davidson, and that was the significance of why there were 3,000 men, and it only took 10 days. General Morgan defeated Tarleton at Cowpens on January 17th. He raced across to Sherrill's Ford, let's just say Mooresville, Highway 150. If you want to know exactly where it is, the best way to go is up to Troutman on 85. Go out, go to the North Carolina or the Lake Norman State Park, drive all the way out that, get a map at the entrance, find the campground that's near the peninsula there, and go to that, take the walking trail, get off the walking trail, go up to the top of the hill, and if you look over that bluff at the river, there were 9 islands there that was called Cheryl's Ford. If you go across the lake on 150, go to the town of Cheryl's Ford, and then there's a neighborhood that goes down there. If you're at the peninsula on the east side and you look across, you'll see a neighborhood on the other side. You can come to this side. The Sherrill family put a monument up near there about the crossing where the family was, Cheryl's Ford. So that's the best way for me to tell you where you can actually physically walk to it. Now, they tell you don't get off the trails. I did. There's a cemetery up there on the top of the hill. The Oliphants. There on the map there was Oliphants. Now Oliphant's Mill was bigger than Charlotte, as big as Salisbury, and the people from the west who were coming to get supplies to go back west would cross at Cheryl's Ford. It was called a public ford. They would cross there and they would get merchandise that they would buy to go back home with. It was a grist mill too, so they could grind their corn. Oliphant's Mill. That's the whole reason. And it was a big town, and supplies were there, and people had that. If you look on this map, you can see Oliphant's Mill, and there's Salisbury. So you can see, and then you can see Charlottesburg. It's dense because it's right on the river, but it's about the same size, if not more. Not too much different. The Salisbury was much bigger because there were 25 dwellings here, and you can see Oliphant's Mill right here. And just above that, on the river here, is where Cheryl's Ford is. So that's Oliphant's. And so on that hilltop there, and this is probably some of the hilltops, the Lake Norman, it was called the Catawba River Valley. The water filled in the valley. There's towns, there's stuff under the lake. Yeah. So Oliphant's Mill is one of them that's under it also. So that is one of the major things. So that's Cheryl's Ford, that's Island Ford. Then there was, up here, there's Buffalo Shoals Ford. There's a bridge that crosses in Iredell County, and that is where the river is at its lowest because it backs up. And so the bridge is, you can see from one side to the other, and you can walk across the bridge. And so I've had some buddies who've done some archaeology up there, and they have found some Revolutionary War artifacts. I don't know if I told you that. She's my buddy. We talked the other night for 3 hours. She inspired me. Yeah.
All about Colson's Mill.
I dressed up like this today because she helped me with my wardrobe. Color coordinated. This would look best with the colors. So, but General Davidson had control of all this area up here, and they were going to put a blockade on the Catawba River to keep Cornwallis over here until the Continental troops could get to Salisbury, and then Cornwallis would have come across the river, come up from China Grove, and then into Salisbury, and there was Frohock's Mill is where he had 1,000 guns stored. He had bought them himself. He used a lot of his money to finance the American Revolution, and he had 1,000 guns there. When he heard the victory at Cowpens, he told General Isaac Huger with the Continentals that were down in Sherrall to come up into Salisbury, bringing 50,000 rounds and the cannons. He was going to do battle in Salisbury. It's all in his letters. It's written out. It's very clear. It's just that what eclipses this is the Battle of Guilford Courthouse. You get Cowpens and Guilford Courthouse, and unfortunately, General Davidson got killed. If General Davidson hadn't got killed, think about this. Didn't die. He's not buried here. He's probably buried at Center Presbyterian Church. 3,000 men here. 1,000 Continentals coming up Sherrall into Salisbury. Morgan had 1,000 men, so you had 2,000 Continentals, 3,000 militiamen, and he ordered 1,000 men from Shelby and Campbell. Shelby is near Lenore, Fort Defiance. If he had 2,000 troops, Patriot, same ones that beat Ferguson at Kings Mountain, 2,000 behind, 3,000 militia, 2,000 Continentals, 7,000 to Cornwallis's 2,500. He would have sandwiched them, and it would have been Yorktown and Salisbury. And we would have the National Museum there, and we wouldn't have the wallet in London.
For how many years? For how many years?
How many years what?
The wallet. They
244 years.
They still have it. Like
Yes.
they loaned it to us for a year and then they took it back.
Yeah, they took it back fast because they didn't want them Scotch Irish trying to go in there and steal it from the national park. Yeah.
I did not know that. I thought that we got it back and
We
kept
did,
it and
temporarily.
for a month or a year.
A year.
A year.
A year and a month.
But if it
Because
belongs to him, why do they claim ownership?
spoils of war.
Yeah. Like everything else they have in
Yeah.
their museum.
I mean, you know, the Crown Jewels has the biggest diamond from India or somewhere like that in it. I mean, you know, the British Empire spread out around the world. They don't like to give stuff back.
It's just a leather wallet.
Yeah, and the wallet actually, Jeff Lawrence, who was the pastor here, and we have a Lawrence room down the hallway in the administration building named for him, and a picture of him in there. He went over there and he was able to see the papers that were in there. There was a letter from George Washington. There was a letter from General Greene.
Oh.
There were about 27,
Oh.
signed by George Washington.
Did they come over with the wallet?
No, they wouldn't send the papers over.
No.
They wouldn't send the papers over. They just sent the wallet. Just. You want to touch my wallet?
Yeah, can I touch your wallet?
She's interested in the wallet.
I am.
Hey, open it up. Because it's pretty much, the guy that made it told me it was pretty much a reproduction of my guy's wallet. And it had the two things in there, so he could take notes, he could put things in there. It has a little flap, so if you open it, stuff's not just going to fall out of one side or another. Oh! I did bring some money. There was some money. But this is the English 6 shillings, and it's King George. So this was English money. Yeah, the Continental dollar wasn't worth much. So to actually have something that was English, this was worth its value in hard money. American inflation of American Continental, not worth a Continental. That's why they said not worth a Continental. Pay me in. That's cool. This is reproduction. It's not real. Yeah.
Oh, well.
Yeah. You know, but I mean, I also stand strong and look at what they considered tobacco leaves. You could redeem it for tobacco leaves. So I mean, that held its value. I mean, that was what.
If that were original, probably worth something.
Yes. Yeah. I'm not going to show you anything original. I have nothing original here. I'm the only thing that's original. Yeah. So I did put that in the side with the flap so it wouldn't fall out in case you open it and stuff like that. So anyways, does anybody else want to touch the wallet? Further, I'll go show you where the graves are. And I just thought this was my stage here for you. I
Appreciate it. That was a great presentation. Thank you so much. Okay guys, if you are still here, bless you for watching this whole video. My phone actually died, unfortunately, during that last presentation. I completely ran out of battery, so I didn't catch the very, very last few minutes of that. But that was the last thing going on at Hopewell today. So I had a really great time. I was there with a friend of mine. We both had so much fun. And I'm kind of sad that it's over. We did go to a couple places afterwards that were doing MEC Deck things, but they were kind of not very related to the MEC Deck. They were just parties going on around Charlotte that had very little to do with the Mecklenburg Declaration. So I feel like we made the right call staying at Hopewell all day. We were there for almost 6 hours, and I have no idea how long this vlog is going to be because I feel like I was filming pretty much the entire 6 hours. But I had so much fun, and I'm absolutely exhausted now. I'm here at the airport to pick up Michael, who's coming home from some work travel today, and I'm very excited to pick him up and go get something to eat and then go home and rest. But I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you're as excited for the 250th anniversary of the Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence, as excited as I am. I'm so proud to be from North Carolina, and I'm so proud that we are celebrating this whole month together. And I'll see you another day in another adventure. Bye, guys.